They want their street clean. They want their trash picked up. They want to reduce crime. And they love all those restaurants that have come to Washington, D.C. because it's a safe city. And it's a tourist mecca. So I personally would say no. We have never had as good a chairman as he is, and he should continue in that position.
Well, let's hope that Mayor Fenty treats this as a wake-up call, because it certainly is a very significant headline. And if it serves to wake him up out of his arrogant stance, then that'll be good for the city, too.
But in the meantime, by the way, CFO has gone to court because the council has told him you cannot pay on contracts that were not personally approved by the council. And, the contractors who have been doing work and some of the people that deserve to get the money, our CFO, Dr. Gandhi, saying, you got to pay them. So he has gone to court to get a decision from them, again, as quickly as possible, to say which one is the one that he's supposed to listen to. Is it the council or the home rule or the Congress? Who? So hopefully the judge will provide him show him the way, rather.
Last week, the Post did an interesting article on a book called Notes from the Cracked Ceiling by author Anne Kornblatt, who basically alleges that even though we had two very prominent candidacies of Sarah Palin and Hillary Clinton, the country as a whole is still not ready to see a woman in power. And, I'm not so sure about that, but according to the author, the thing that separates female voters from male voters is that female candidates have to remember that women can be deeply suspicious and critical of one another. And she said that actually played a factor in how the election went through. And she gave specific reasons for why Hillary Clinton just never managed to connect with the voters the way she needed to, especially women voters, if you remember. Yeah. She was not connecting to the female voters very well. And a lot of them, in fact, were voting for President Obama. Likewise, Sarah Palin, and she specifically talks about how McCain underestimated the response of women because, as it turns out, just picking an attractive female lady doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get the female vote. And consequently, a lot of women were resentful to see someone represent them on a center stage who didn't come across as being very smart or articulate. Even though Sarah Palin did attract a lot of Republicans to her base, she didn't fundamentally advance the cause of women. So the critique in this article is that this book really doesn't present an optimistic or positive view necessarily of women in the political front. But on the other hand, her crux of the article is that it's just not time yet, that somehow we're still not ready yet for a female in power.
When we started the 21st century here at Darshan, I made a prediction, and I said, this will be the woman's century. So we have just gotten into it. So this is the first 10 years. But here's something that I want to give you. In economics of marriage, men have hit a jackpot. In the olden days, typically most wives did not work. So for economic well-being, marriage penalized guys with more mouths to feed, but no extra income. Now most wives work. For guys, the economic of marriage have become much more beneficial. So now when you're marrying a woman, you're not only marrying for love, but you're marrying for her condo, for her job, for her salary, and if she has a car. I mean, I am serious. This is so good for men.
Well, that and the reality is, to live a good life here, you need two incomes. It's very difficult to live a good, people call a dink life, dual income, no kids. Yeah. That's when you can live you maximize on both sides. Yeah. If you only have one income coming into the household.
That's true. But how did that happen? Back, folks, in the 70s, 64% of men used to go to college and 36% of women. There was such a disparity. But tides have turned now. Yes. In 2007, according to the paper, it is 56.5% of women go to college versus 45.5%. Now imagine how much that has increased. And by the way, in 2009, 2010, that might be 57 to 43. So women are coming in. And once women become 65, 35, that's when you will have a president from the woman's side.
And actually, you're correct. I think what you're pointing out as a trend is the same trend that she points out in her book. Women voters are complex creatures. They're not simple in that, sometimes men will switch party affiliations and vote for the candidate they believe in. Women don't behave the same way. So, in other words, as they gain more power, as they gain more economic freedom, they're also becoming a political power, but they're not quite as predictable in the same ways that men are.
Yeah.
So women will have to, of the future, candidates of the future, will have to look at women differently than they look at just the male populace. And they'll have to create campaign strategies, political strategies. They can't simply count on being a woman to garner the female vote.
But, on the lighter side of it, we men are looking forward to it. Of course, we are also scared. Men operate under instructions very nicely, and women instruct very nicely. But once they become, bosses and others, they won't have time for instructions to their husbands. So we are like in a quandary, whether it's going to be good for us or bad for us. So let's see.
Well, it just means both sides have to adjust. I think women are letting go of the homes and the home front. Men have an opportunity to take more of that over. So it is becoming a bit of a shift in the not just economic structure, but social structure as well, marriage structure.
That's right. But here is a ad, which I think now is like old. It says, advice to wives whose husbands don't have enough life insurance. Buy a wife. Now, this is an ad for life insurance. This is what it's saying. Having one breadwinner is wonderful in that you're able to stay home and care for your children and the house. The downside is that it's risky if your husband doesn't have enough life insurance protection. So they're asking wives, make sure your husband, if he's a sole breadwinner, that he has enough insurance. I would like to tell this insurance company, no. You should ask men to take insurance on their wives, because nowadays wives